Hi, thanks for joining me today. We're going to focus on our core today. I want to give you, it's just a three pose sequence, but I'm going to show you several different variations. It's basically a plank pose, a side plank left and right, and a downward facing dog. And all of those three poses combined are really beneficial for your core. But I did, again, want to give you some variations to do if you have wrist issues, or if you are just starting to work on your core and need a little modification, a little variation. So the first one we're going to do, we're actually going to use a chair, or you can do this with a heavy bench piece of furniture, something that's not going to move. I have pushed my chair up against the side of my deck railing here so that it doesn't slide. So that's some important thing, is you want whatever you're using to be stable. So I'm going to come and place my hands on the seat of the chair, walk the feet back, and then bring my shoulders over my wrists and settle in for a plank pose. So I'm thinking of drawing my lowest ribs towards my hips. I'm lengthening through the crown of the head. I'm pressing through the heels. Couple breaths here. Again, one of our most important parts of our core is our breathing. So make sure you're taking full breaths all the way down into the bottom of the lungs. Inhale and exhale. And then we're gently going to spin both heels over to the right, recenter the hand on the chair, the right hand on the chair, bring the left arm diagonally up. So you can do this a couple ways. You can stagger the feet one in front of the other, or stack the feet on top of each other, whatever feels best, more stable for you. So take a couple breaths, inhale and exhale, and then bring both hands back down to the chair. Reestablish that plank pose. And now bring your left hand to the center of whatever you're using for your support. Spin both heels to the left and reach the right arm diagonally up. Lengthen through the crown of the head. Again, think of drawing the lowest ribs towards the hips, so we're keeping that core that we're working engaged. And then bring the right hand back down, center the hands again on either side of the seat of the chair, and send your hips back to downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale. And then walk one foot towards the chair, the other foot towards the chair, and then bring yourself up into a standing position. So that's the first sequence, first variation. Second variation, we're going to come down to the mat. So start in a table pose with the wrist under the shoulders and the knees under the hips. Neutral position for the spine. Again, the lowest ribs are drawing towards the hips, so we're not letting the belly and the shoulders sag down. We're lifting the front of the body away from the mat, engaging our core muscles. Now extend the left leg back and the right leg back. Come to a plank pose, but then go ahead and release the knees back down to the mat. So we're going to do this first variation with the supported, a little bit more supported variations. So still, even though the knees are to the mat, we're still breathing and engaging those core muscles. Inhale and exhale. Then I'm going to bring my right hand to the center of the mat. I'm going to pivot on the right knee, extend the left leg out straight, bring that left arm all the way up and overhead. So coming into our variation of our side plank here. So we're still thinking of these core muscles being engaged. We're still breathing. Inhaling and exhaling. And then bring the left hand back down, come back to your table pose, and then set up again for that plank pose, half plank pose. And then left hand to the center, spin the left leg behind you, straighten the right leg, bring that right arm up and overhead. Make sure that left wrist is under the left shoulder. Make sure you're breathing. And then bringing the right hand back down, pivoting back on that left knee, bring yourself back to table pose, wrist under shoulders, knees under hips, then hands in front, send your sit bones up and back for a bent knee, downward facing dog. So stay on the toes, knees bent, lengthening crown of the head towards the mat, or towards the front of the mat, towards your hands. Inhale and exhale. And then release the knees down to the mat. and then just come back onto the heels just for a moment. So a second variation, same 3 poses, modification for downward facing dog and side plank and our regular plank pose. So third variation, more traditional, least amount of modification, wrist under shoulders, extend the right leg back and the left leg back, coming to your full plank pose. Lengthen through the crown of the head. Again, important here, if we let the shoulders sag, then we're putting an enormous amount of weight in the shoulders. So think of pressing the hands away from the mat, and we're kind of doming up between the shoulders. Same thing with the hips. The more you let the hips sag, the more weight you have in the shoulders. Inhale and exhale. Now right hand's going to come to the center. We're going to spin onto the side of the feet and bring that left arm overhead. Inhale, side plank, and exhale. And then bring that left hand back down. Reestablish your plank pose. Take a breath. Inhale and exhale. And then left hand comes to the center. Spin onto the sides of your feet, dropping the heels towards the left. And the right arm extends overhead. Again, make sure you're breathing. Inhale and exhale. And then bringing the right hand back down. Back to that plank pose, and then sit bones up and back, downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale. Think of pressing into the fingertips, the base of the knuckles to help take the pressure off the wrists. Inhale and exhale, and then release the knees to the mat, uncurl the toes. Come back to a child pose for a breath. Inhale and exhale. And then gently come back up to table pose. So the last variations sequence today is going to be from the elbows. So this is if you really have pressure, feel a lot of pressure in the wrist and you need a little bit more modification. So we're going to bring the elbows down to the mat in our table pose. Elbow directly under the shoulder. Interlace the fingers. Make sure the knees are underneath the hips. And then extend your right leg back and your left leg back, come to an elbow plank pose. Lengthen through the crown of the head. So same thing applies here. Don't let the shoulders sag down. Don't let the hips sag down. Inhale and exhale. Good. Now bring the arms back out, fingertips pointing towards the front of the mat, and then just spin, pivot on that right elbow, bring it to the side, come into your side plank, and then bring that left hand back down, switch sides, and then coming to that side plank on the opposite side. And then bring both hands back down. So keep the forearms parallel this time. Walk the feet in a little bit. Send your sit bones up and back, coming to variation of downward facing dog called dolphin pose. Inhale and exhale. Press into the fingertips, base of the knuckles. And then release the knees to the mat and curl the toes. Come back to a child pose. Hips towards the heels, forehead towards the mat. You can always stack your hands up, letting the forehead rest on the hands if you need a little support. And then very gently coming up to a comfortable seated position. So I hope that helps you. Again, it's a sequence. You can do that sequence just like that, and testing yourself with each of those variations. You know, if you don't have any wrist issues and you want to do the full poses, great. If you have wrist issues and you need to do the poses more from the elbows or use the chair for a little less weight, that's great too. So that's the nice thing about yoga, is there's modifications and variations for all levels of where you are in your journey. Again, you can do the sequence straight through, just like we did it today, just different variations. You can pick the variation that works best for you and repeat that a few times. And then just notice how you are beginning to build some strength. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope to see you sometime soon in the saddle or on the mat. Don't forget to give this video the thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel, and check out my offerings on Grey Horse Yoga. The information is in the comments below. Thanks. Bye-bye.